Welcome to the SafetyPro Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our partners in safety. They make this podcast possible. So whenever you get an opportunity, go ahead and hit the links in the show notes. Go see what they have to offer for you. First up is Mighty Line Floor Tape. If you're interested in marking your facilities, maintaining your 5S program, ensuring the safety of your employees in your facilities, Mighty Line Tape has all the products that you need to make that happen. We're talking floor tape that is designed for forklift traffic, designed for foot traffic. We're talking custom signs with your own logos, by the way. Go to mightylinetape.com/podcast. See what they have to offer for you. By the way, when you get there, you can order a free sample of their incredible floor tape. That's mightylinetape.com/podcast. Let them know that we sent you. mightylinetape.com/podcast. Next up, of course, is the official safety services provider of the SafetyPro Podcast. I'm talking about none other than Aero Safety. Drew Hinton with Aero Safety has been a friend of the podcast for many years, and we are excited to partner with Aero Safety. If you're looking to have training done in your facility, assessments, audits, inspections, maybe it's program reviews and development, it doesn't matter. Whatever your safety needs are, Aero Safety has you covered. No canned programs that they dust off the shelf and repackage and resell. Every service they offer is customized to your business, your processes, the tasks your workers need to perform, and of course, it is to the highest safety standard. Go to aerosafetyus.com. Get a discount off your first quote when you mention you heard about them on the SafetyPro Podcast. Again, aerosafetyus.com. Let them know that we sent you. Now let's get into today's episode.
Okay, I think we're recording, Kyle.
All right, what's up?
What are we going to talk about? I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
So yeah, we're trying to do something a little different. We don't really go in ever with any type of script ever. It's pretty organic, but
we usually know in general what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, at least a subject.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna try to just roll with it and see how it goes.
All right. So we were talking about this. Was it last week or the week before? It was within the last couple of weeks about, we should just when we have the time, we should just hop on because our schedules are crazy. And if we have a gap or have an opening, we should just hop on and just talk about some topic. Just each of us have something in mind. Mm-hmm. And then that way, when we have the opportunity, we just can talk about it. But the problem with that is we didn't come up with the thing we will talk about next.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something in mind, obviously. So
yeah. So
introduce us to this mystery topic.
Yeah. So we were when I was been doing some traveling recently, and I was in New York and visiting a friend, and definitely, New York is it's busy, right? It's busy. It's a chaotic place.
So when you say New York, do you mean most of the country thinks of New York, which is New York City?
Yeah, New York City. Yeah. Times Square in the thick of it.
So that's the busy. That's why you say it can be busy. So so that part of New York can be crazy. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we're walking through these crosswalks, and there's a lot of construction going on in New York. I'm sure, like everywhere else.
Yeah.
And in the crosswalk, they have this area barricaded off, and it's kind of parallel, maybe 5 feet from the crosswalk. It's this big open hole. I mean 6 feet or more for sure. And
maybe deep or wide?
Both, right? So it's probably 15 feet wide, 6 feet or more deep.
That's
And
not nothing. That's not a pothole. That's
no, yeah,
connected
they're in it, right? And so
yeah.
they have these retractable cone bars that are set up around it. Okay, and if you've ever seen them, some people used to joke and call them shower rods because that's what they look like, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're a little they come in like 3 foot increments, but you can extend it out to 12 feet. They're kind of plastic material. So they had those around all four corners. So I'm kind of explain the context, and I think it would be fun for us to kind of dissect each part of it of like what is some potential risk there, even with a normal bystander walking by. That's what
I've
I
got a
thought we would
couple of
do.
questions already, but yeah,
Right?
let's
Yeah, that's fine. So they got that right, and then they have this on the sign. It says danger radiation area. Okay.
what?
So they've got that on all three or all four corners as well. All right. So again, New York. That's why we framed it this way. People, I mean, just this normal crosswalk, easily 100 people. Okay. So I'm walking past. I mean, people are pushing each other. They're going around it. So they're basically walking on both sides of the open hole, right?
They're hustling and bustling as they do in New York.
Yes, it's normal, right? For there. Yeah. And so they're getting to their train, whatever. And then so they're pushing past each other on the phone. I mean, these people are within less than a foot of this hole, right?
Of the
And
whole, you mean, and that was my first question, is how
yeah,
far back are these barricades that have no lateral
right.
load
Yep,
rating?
yep. You
They're
hit the
just
first one there, right? So the answer to your question is it was right up next against. I mean, it might have been a few inches. Okay,
all
so
right.
so it's right up against it. Um, and then the other, so you keyed in on part there is that's not gonna. Those are really good for kind of just directional stuff.
Awareness.
Yeah, it's not going to hold anything. It's certainly not going to the guy who's on the phone, bustling past. And
Those are for like what we consider would be non-hazardous areas. Like you just painted a wall and you want to keep people from bumping or rubbing against the wall or something, and you would put those up because you don't need a physical barricade that's
right,
bolted down and railing with a load rating, or because you're not protecting against something that's really serious. This seems like there was a mismatch with
yeah, yeah. It wasn't. There's a few things missed there for sure.
okay, so
So
it's right up against it. It's
yeah,
just the plastic cones with a shower curtain rod connecting them, basically.
yeah, basically,
Um,
yeah, retractable cone bar shower rod type situation, and they have. And to your point there, the only time you would use those is exactly what you said. The only other time you might use it is if you used it to I've seen some people use it as their perimeter, like if they're because
like a
it
controlled access zone.
yeah. So it's able to. What's good about the little rods is you can just put them on and they assemble really easily. So people can like basically put like I've seen some companies like it because it'll be you can have all kinds of logos on there. I could say danger, it could say all these different things, but basically they could set up that like I've seen people use that as their crane lift zone, right? So it's
Yeah.
way back beyond the risk, right? So
You're
it's like
you're using distance,
yes,
with a warning sign, but, a label, but, yeah, obviously, you would also wanna monitor in some of those cases, but
yes.
what's interesting is how you said that just the volume of pedestrians going by like it was not a big deal. This just shows you
Yeah.
how common this probably is, but do you have a photo of this?
No, no, I don't.
Okay,
I was looking back and I didn't because we were actually on the run too.
right.
Yeah, and no, but it was a typical crosswalk, and this was parallel to it. I mean, maybe
In the
5 feet.
street?
Yeah, 5 feet to a parallel, right? And so
Okay,
that's the thing. People aren't exactly again hustling bustling. They're not exactly walking perfectly in the crosswalk. They're going out around it,
right.
and that's just normal, right? And so anyway, so that's what we were talking about, right? And so yeah, so there's no that's not holding anything. And then we started asking about there's one other scenario that they had. So they were jackhammering too. Okay, um, and so the workers that were parallel to them, I don't know, you could say maybe 10 feet. So they're jackhammering right next to this hole, right? And so they don't have hearing protection in, right? So it's like whatever 5 feet away from it. So that's again another angle you could look at it. It's like, okay, at what point, you know, with sound traveling, if you this was a workplace scenario for those workers, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what level of exposure do you think that they have, right? That would be another question you can ask from that scenario.
For the areas that are exposed. I mean, for the workers
Right.
that are exposed to that noise, not the ones engaged directly, but the ones that are still working just right next to them.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Whether they were the same crew or same contractor or not, you know, this would invoke the multi-employer worksite citation policy reference as to whether you're the creating or the exposing in this case, right?
Hmm.
Um, so a couple of questions I have that is, but this is a great topic because you not only have workplace safety, which
Hmm.
OSHA doesn't apply to the pedestrians,
Yeah.
but um, you have city ordinances, codes, things like that for working in the public way. OSHA does have some stuff that would benefit the public if you followed them, you know, uh, clearly. But like the guarding that hole, that open hole, like I know in construction, somebody's going to fact check us on this for the
Hmm.
reference for the actual code. Um, if like you're working adjacent to the road and you leave heavy equipment unattended overnight, for
Right.
example, then you're required to put the flashing lights and if you leave the equipment there. So
Yeah.
that benefits the public, the driving public, so there's some examples that we can find,
Right.
but then there's a matter of practicality. Like this is downtown New York,
Hmm.
Manhattan, whatever,
Hmm.
wherever you are. Um, is there room for I mean, could you shut down that sidewalk? It sounds like you would either have to bolt some metal guardrail that had a load rating. It would have to be tested. It would have to be inspected or designed for this. Um, I don't know if they could have done that if it was feasible. Did it look like that was feasible?
Y- Maybe. Yeah, for sure. I think they could have done that. And then another option too is they have those basically removable guard excuse me, movable guardrails that are weighted, right? They could
Right.
just they could have just sat at those there and it would have had the 200 plus that you need. But the but yeah, they could have definitely done that, right? And set it up the same way. Um, and at least it would have been protected if someone did brush up against it. Because yeah, if, in the case of what the scenario that they have, they're going straight in. But yeah, to your point, they either anchoring it to the ground for sure. I mean, they could have definitely done that. They could have done some portable means using the weighted. So if anyone's ever seen them, it's an actual weight at the bottom. They're OSHA compliant and everything. You slot them in, and they're either pinned or secured, bolted in place, whichever one you use. So yeah, there's some options in that area.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then
they use them for crowd control at New Year's Eve in New York City, and
yeah, right,
the Macy's Day Parade. We're coming up on Thanksgiving here at the time of this recording, but
yeah,
it seems totally reasonable to have something a little more substantial than
right,
PVC
right.
running through the eyelet of the top of a plastic cone.
Yeah, yeah. And you brought up a good point too. So you're talking about being able to, especially the pedestrians and stuff that are walking by, especially when you're setting down shop for the day, and there could be an open hole, especially at night, visibility, stuff like that. But in that case, to your point of looking at other options, whether that be shutting off the street, whether that be funneling those pedestrians away from that area,
Mhm.
right? They could at least try to do that, especially a lot earlier. Because I mean, when these people were coming around the corner or coming straight from that crosswalk, I mean, this is the first thing that they're passing, right? So there could have been some ways to kind of funnel them, away from it so that they wouldn't be nowhere near close or a little bit further away.
Yeah. That's
So
crazy.
yeah, so that was definitely interesting. And then we were talking about just briefly there with the hearing protection. Yeah, the point, we won't go all deep into it. You talked about the multi-employer, and that definitely applies in this scenario, especially because you have these, excavation crews, maybe iron workers, different people, different contractors.
Oh
And
man,
then,
I go to Nashville quite a bit.
mhm,
Um, Nashville, that city downtown is just booming. And I think I counted like 40 some cranes
mhm,
one night when I was down there. We were at a restaurant at the top of a hotel that had
mhm,
like a panoramic view. And we were just counting all the
right,
cranes that were in downtown. It's insane. So that means a lot of sidewalks are closed. So there was one stretch of a road we would walk to the office, from the hotel to the office in the morning, and back home because the weather was nice, and we would just walk. It was a couple of blocks. But there was this one main road, the street that we would walk down to get to the building, and you had, if you didn't know ahead of time, that which the first time it happened to us, we learned the hard way. You walk down the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this side, oh well, shoot, it's closed up ahead. Dang it! So we're like, we had to go back to a crosswalk. Otherwise, we still saw people walking in the road, going around this building that had the sidewalk shut because they're doing construction. But
mhm,
then a little further down on the other side, another building is that. So you're going zigzag down this street, like, and there's no sidewalk when you get to the part where it's closed. You have to either walk back, half a block. If you're not paying attention, you're on your phone, you're just walking, and you're like, oh, shoot, sidewalk's closed ahead.
mhm,
uh, and you're looking around, you're just going to jaywalk, as most people just go across the street. And it
right,
was busy. It's a busy downtown Nashville street. And then you walk a little bit and you have to do the same thing. It was insane. And so at one point, what they did, you said funnel.
mhm,
What they did is they had these plastic jersey barriers
mhm,
filled with liquid. I don't want to know what was in them. Guarantee you, they're not using the bactricide and the antibacterial solution that has to be changed and all. There's an environmental concern with that, but if they just filled them with water, it was probably disgusting.
yeah,
But and we're opening a whole can of worms. Every time you do something, you have to consider all these other things,
right,
right? Use concrete barriers. Well, they're more expensive and they're heavier. They're heavy to transport and to put in place and to move. The plastic ones are cheaper, more affordable, but then you got to fill them with something. And so anyway, what they did was they had the fence on the sidewalk and covered up for the construction area, and then they put everybody into the road for the first lane, and they had these jersey barriers, so you have traffic going by, and
mhm,
you're walking. The pedestrians are walking, and you'll get to a jersey barrier where it's just in, and you're like, well, who hit that?
yeah,
And there's a deflection, right? There's a zone, there's a buffer that you still need even with those barriers
mhm,
if you're working. And I like to catch people on this one in the workplace when they install these guardrails in their building inside to separate pedestrians from forklift traffic. And those yellow guardrails that are bolted with the square posts that are bolted to the slab, the floor, the warehouse floor or the factory floor, those barriers, they have a sticker on them that say, it depends on the rating, but the ones I've seen are, um, must be installed, a guardrail must be installed at least 12 inches away from the object being protected.
mhm,
And they'll have like equipment right up against it. They'll put these barriers right up against going past a column, a support column, and it's within 12 because of deflection. And so yeah, I'm not, now you got my wheels turning. Dang it.
yeah,
Too
yeah.
early,
So
Kyle.
yeah, to your point, even when you you're funneling things like that, you're still having to have other considerations like, okay,
Right.
if someone bumps this, how much is it going to give? Things like that. And
Yeah.
and um, and the other so the other part we talked about, you got multi-employer, we got all these different things. The whole point about the hearing protection was sound waves carry, right? No, jackhammers are loud. I mean, that should be common sense, right? The other part was, it started, I was like, okay, it said radioactive, so
Yeah,
it
I
said,
hadn't even gotten to that one yet.
right, so it says danger radiation area, and it had this
Yeah.
little radioactive symbol, right?
Now, was that on the cone, like, they just had those left laying around and they grabbed them, or somebody affixed a sign to the system somewhere, the little rail system that said radiation?
They affixed it to each corner of it. So on all four corners,
Oh, I wonder if they were X-raying
right? So that's what I was thinking, was like, okay, what could
utilities or
what
vaults that are X-raying something, yeah.
right, what could produce that, right? So you keyed in on it right there. So the PMI, the positive material identification, and then I think they're called RxF scanners or something like that.
Yeah,
But basically, with those, they can do anything from, testing. Every most industries use them.
yeah,
Aerospace, metallurgy. It's testing materials of construction, things like that. And I believe it can be used for soil testing as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, they can.
so that's what I was like. Okay, and then I was asking, okay, is there actually any, you know, potential risk to the public at, that point? Well, probably not, but they gave in this case, at least, that they identified that, that I guess that's one positive there, right? So there's
But
signs at
but
least.
you're bringing up a good point. So there's a balance, right?
Hmm.
So maybe they're using a device that they're looking, there's a casing that runs under there that they uncovered, a concrete casing, a casement, and probably some cables or conduits running through. Maybe they want to X-ray it because they're
Hmm.
trying to find something maybe to work on. And so they've got this little device. By definition, it's an X-ray machine.
Hmm.
It could potentially have some issue, but they're 6 feet in deep into in a hole,
Hmm.
and they're placing this down, and it's got some safeties features on the machine, right? Like, it's not, you're going to be pointing it, it's got to, there's some things you got to follow. how how at risk are people 6 feet up, 5 feet over,
Hmm.
right? Assuming they're walking by, and at that instant they snap a shot or they're running this thing.
Hmm.
um Maybe none.
Right.
But the standard says you have to post this. And so now you've got the public, not workers, where you could have a safety briefing and you could say, this is what we're doing over here, this is what this thing does, this is what this thing doesn't do.
Hmm.
We have to post this notice up here and the sign, so you're going to see the sign. If you have any questions, just come ask us anything you want. You're not down in the hole, you're not near, and you're not going to be exposed to anything. It's just to let you know that this activity is going on.
Hmm.
We have special training and equipment for the people in there handling this machine, but you don't get to do that with the public.
Hmm.
They just see this thing and go, what the heck?
Yeah, I see the the
The sign.
radioactive, and you're
Are
like,
my teeth going to
well,
fall out later? Like, what are
yeah, yeah, what's going on here?
right.
Uh, and to your point there, things that you have to consider and follow. I know that in Kentucky, if you have one of those little scanners, I know that they usually have to have a certificate, assigned to them, because, like you said, X-ray. And then I think it's the Division of Public Health and Protection. I think there's a actual safety radiation health branch where you maintain that certification, where they talk about, you know, how you're using it, things like that. But
Yeah, every state has one. I know Ohio does. When I go into some buildings that use X-ray machine for security, even the courthouse, like, that has to be tested, certified. They have to have a license. You have to do training for the operators and everything. But the general public, and it'll say X-ray machine on it and stuff. But the general public, like they just walk by because the machine itself is shielded. Um, it's putting stuff in it that's getting the exposure. But yeah, you're right. You take that outside, you kind of change things, right? It changes things. You have to still tell workers what's going on, but then the public sees it.
Right.
S
Yeah.
Wonder if
Yeah.
they got a bunch of calls about that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was talk about the amount of people that you just, I mean, just in my walk across 100 people, right? So throughout the day,
That's
thousands,
insane. Probably, yeah, tens of thousands,
and
go there.
so yeah, and yeah, my exposure, we're working with radiation devices and things like that is very limited outside of these scanners that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Some people are, really, it's really a part of their, industry day to day. You talked about it, dental, different X-ray machines, things like that, especially in healthcare. It's a big deal. The only, so it's interesting though, when we're talking about just things that, radiation, radioactive, um, the exit signs, the old exit signs made in the 50s that were made with
tritium, or no,
yeah,
not
tritium.
tritium,
Yeah,
that's what we use
so
now.
yeah, we had to get rid of some of those at a previous
The Yeah,
workplace.
what made those glow, right?
Right. Yeah, so we're like, hold on, this thing has been unplugged for how long? And
Yeah,
it's definitely past its 90 minutes that it has to glow for. So what's
yeah,
going on here? It could glow for 10 years.
yeah.
So
No, we made these signs at 3 Mile Island. They're perfectly fine.
yeah, it was like $200 to recycle a sign, each exit sign.
Man,
You can recycle it though. So
yeah.
anyway.
Do you remember the story of the this guy who made, I don't know if he was trying to make a nuclear bomb, but he went around and bought a bunch of smoke detectors, like, in all around the county, and he had a shed out back that he was taking the radioactive material out of the sensors, and he was compounding them. He was ma so it turned out he ended up with radiation sickness, or something happened, like, the authorities caught on to this somehow. The FBI was involved. This was a long, long time ago. I don't know when it was, in the '70s or the '80s?
Mhm.
It may have been even before that.
Right.
Somebody look that up, because I was not prepared to talk about this. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah,
come
well,
with the facts, but that's what he did. He figured out what was in this stuff, these devices, and he just went around and started buying. He ended up getting convicted, and he was like, and then he got out, but he was banned from, like, doing any of this stuff, right? And sure enough, went right back to it. He went right back to doing it. But it was in his shed, and I wanna say it was in the upper, East Coast, like Maryland, Connecticut, something like that, maybe. Oh, man, I could be way off on this. Um, isn't that crazy? Because you were talking about signs, exit signs, right? There's another source of nasty material somebody could compound,
Mhm.
collect, and compound to make something that is really, really bad.
Yes,
I
but
wonder what
yeah,
the heck he was trying to do. If he was trying to make his own nuclear bomb.
right, right. Yeah, because yeah, to your point, I mean, it's fine when it's in the sign, but what happens when that breaks and that, things like that, right? So it's enclosed in different materials, whether that it be liquid or whatever it is. Yeah, once it breaks, it's a little bit different scenario. But to your
I'm
point,
looking it
being able
up.
to gather it,
You got me on a tangent now. Oh, look, here it is. Yes, former Boy Scout. Okay, 1976. Okay. Oh, wait, is that when he was born? Okay. Sometimes he's referred to as the radioactive Boy Scout and the nuclear Boy Scout. He was an American nuclear radiation enthusiast. I don't think that's a thing.
No, no.
That doesn't sound like an
There's not
official
enough
title.
people to to claim that's a thing.
Yeah, don't make that a thing. He built homemade neutron source at the age of 17. Yeah, and I wanna see where because I wanna test my Michigan, I was wrong. But I was correct in that he conducted his experiments in secret in a backyard shed at his mother's house. His goal was to build and demonstrate a homemade breeder reactor.
Whoa.
Wow. And it
Crazy.
says the police wait, when he okay, it attracted attention at the attention of local police when they found concerning material in his vehicle during a stop for a separate matter. Hahn warned them When Hahn warned the police that the material was radioactive, the police contacted federal authorities, worried that he may have an atomic bomb. His mother's property was cleaned up by the EPA 10 months later as a Superfund cleanup site. His shed was a Superfund cleanup site. Oh my
It's
god.
called CERCLA.
Yeah, so, it became it says he was subsequently treated for mental illness. Um, yeah, okay. But he did this by buying, materials. Like, he would get, um, Americum? I don't know, whatever. He would get this from smoke detectors. He would get thorium from camping lantern mantles, and radium from old clocks that he had obtained from antique stores, and tritium from gun sites. And he would collect all this stuff.
Well, there's tritium right there.
Yeah, and he would
One of the four, right?
yeah, his reactor was a bored out block of lead, and he used lithium from $1,000 worth of purchased batteries to purify the thorium ash using a Bunsen burner.
Man, talk about mad scientist in the shed.
All right, well, that was a trip down a rabbit hole. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
But, you triggered a memory when you talked about the old exit signs and such, and this was in the '80s. I mean, this stuff was commonplace, but think about all the different sources that he had to go to without a lot of difficulty
Mhm.
and was able to collect this stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty crazy, honestly.
I bet
Yeah.
he told his friends he had a super fun shed.
Yeah. Can't believe he triggered CERCLA off of that. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Imagine the realtor trying to offload that real estate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be that individual.
No, no.
No.
Alright, sorry. That was a great side trip, though. So
Yeah.
you mentioned, the signs, the exit signs and everything,
Yeah.
but, wow.
Yeah, you cannot just for the we want to reemphasize this. You cannot be what was it? What did it say? A radioactive enthusiast? What was that? What it was?
Yeah, I that was a weird title. Yeah, that is not that
It's not a thing. We're not
no,
going to make it a thing.
please don't make that a thing.
No, no, no.
Interesting.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So you were talking about before I derailed us, um, you were heading in the direction of you talked about, like, using these devices, and then you brought up the old, exit signs, from the past, days of old. Where were you headed with that? You had another example you were gonna bring up. You had the hole in the street, then the radiation signs and the X-ray machines. Um, I
Well,
don't
yeah, I
know.
mean, really, it was. Yeah, we kind of dove into. variety of different things there, right? We talked about pedestrian, access and control, and those controlling that foot traffic and vehicle traffic. We talked about fall protection. We talked about hearing protection and PPE. We talked
We
about
didn't even talk about excavation.
yeah, exactly.
Of course,
Talk
yeah.
about X-ray and radioactive stuff, and then so your point there, you can go down to excavation as well.
That 6-foot hole in the street just opened a can of worms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember these things like every time I'm going back to Nashville next week, and the I'm always thinking about that stretch of road where they're building these high rises, where you're walking in the road and all you have are these plastic jersey barriers separating you. I could reach out and tag cars, like that's how close you are. The cars, as a matter of fact, if the cars are stopped at a light, there's a light at this one intersection, and cars will be stopped there. You couldn't even open the passenger door if you're sitting in the car that's waiting on the light to turn green, because that's how close that plastic jersey barrier is. And I could just touch the window. I'm that close.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And like you said,
insane.
just cars just whizzing past you, just
Well,
scrolling
when
past.
they're going, yeah, when they're going, I don't know. I think the speed limit is, well, suggested speed limit is it might be 25, but I mean, you get a cup 3,000-4,000 pound, you get an SUV or a truck or whatever, just swerves into those barriers, it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
matter. You're going to
Yeah.
get the crap knocked out of you.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. But no, I didn't really have anything else. I mean, that one was just such a good one because you could slice it up 6 different ways, and
whole bunch of stuff.
yeah.
Right. So anybody listening or watching, obviously, if you're heading over to the Safety Pro Podcast community site, you can watch the video interview for this episode. But for anybody else out there in podcast land, if you have examples of this, also, if you've dealt with this type of, maybe not radioactive in a 6-foot hole in Manhattan, that's very specific, but like, how do you balance the workplace safety rules and regulations, but then you also have this public safety component that comes into play? um I know, when I worked with an excavation company years ago, they would do plat development, land development. There was always this balance of workplace safety, but also public safety, and dealing with the local building code enforcement and the cities and their codes and ordinances. They had some weird ones. Like, it was for every, I remember one city, I don't remember the name, what city it was in, but I do remember this specifically because it was like, it wasn't odd, but they had it down this specific. For every, like, so many trucks, like gravel trucks that were coming in and delivering gravel or whatever, for every like 5, we had to run the sweeper in the street to make sure that it didn't build up. They didn't want to build up too much gravel, stone, dust, through the course of the day. They wanted us to kind of clean as we went. So they came up with this. I don't know how or who came up with it, but like, I think it was every 5 gravel trucks, we had to run the sweeper before we could have more gravel trucks come in. I don't know why, but that was a weird requirement that they had
Yeah,
for
but
me.
yeah, good. I mean, a good way to stay on top of it though, from the housekeeping aspect. So to your
And I
point,
think
doesn't
that's what
build
they
up.
were doing, was making sure we stayed on top of it
Yeah.
instead of waiting till the end of the day. And that's usually what most sites do. It's
Yeah.
filthy. There's mud and there's crap all over the road tracking in and out of this entryway to the construction site. And at the end of the day, that's usually the last thing that gets started up, is that street brush.
Yeah, and then
And
at that point,
then it's
you have
just
so much.
throwing a plume everywhere,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is like it's flinging rocks everywhere. So you got a rock slinger now.
Yeah.
But
Good stuff, man. Until the next time, we'll have another surprise topic that you'll bring to the table
yeah,
and just talk about it.
yeah, no, that was fun.
All right. Thanks.
All right.